Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself a minecart track, a fancy one that will connect all of your bases together in a nice cohesive manner that will really help the building quality of your area. Even if it might not be the most useful, especially with the existence of the elytra, it really does wonders for the health of your world. And if we set it to nighttime, and you have something like shaders or vibrant visuals, you can see how much it adds to your world, having all these lights and reflections. It's a very important part of any world to have some cohesion, so why not make a minecart track that's somewhat useful? Either way, let's begin. Starting off, we need to get ourselves an area that we frequent. Right here, we have a base, and all around us, even if it's kind of barren because not many tutorials, still, we have a nice Tudor house over there, a birch house. We can even connect up to some other areas around here. And thus, we might actually want a minecart track, even if it's not the most useful late game. So right here, our main base, and we have a nice palette going on with the pale and the dark oak, which means we should copy that for the track. And before we begin, let's familiarize ourselves with each of the uses. The detector rail, of course, is a pressure plate for rails, and the activator rail will eject players. Keep that in mind. And then of course the powered rail, if it's unpowered, acts as brakes, and normal rails are what you expect them to be. So hooray, now we know all that, and let's think of a route. Because of course we need to do a bit of planning. This will be our beginning, and then let's think. Maybe we want to curl around here, put something here later, so we want to have a stop here. And then we can just go across, maybe even into this mountain directly. And then we should have a stop right by this cute old Tudor house, and finally we can have one that maybe goes right alongside this mountainside, and then we can end up at this birch one, and potentially we go right back into the mountain and loop back to the beginning. We should have a complete circle, and if you can't do a complete circle, at least make it so you can have a nice long ride, even if it might be interrupted a few times. Right here we have the beginnings of our station, and then we have this rail all the way over to part B. But of course I need to discuss how to even shape the rails, because this is a really nice and smooth thing. Well, how do I do it? Let me explain, because that's kind of why you're here. Starting off, we have this, and you can see how it's a nice little 3 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. But what if we want to smooth it out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. And what do you know? Now we've smoothed it out to make it look more like a circle instead of having all those straight tracks. And then, what if we want to make a nice turn? Well, do you think we should go, follow my cursor, like this? Or do you think we should go like this? I know it seems like common sense, but in Minecraft, your thinking might be a little bit different. So we need to account for that. So we go through here, and notice how we change from 7 down to 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, and then we go back to 3, 4, and continue on. And now we have this nice curve. I don't recommend going up and making a curve at the same time. You will need to really prepare for that, because remember, a rail can go up or it can curve. It cannot go up and curve at the same time. So you have to balance it out very well. Make sure you have a plan if you're trying to do something like whatever the Polar Express does. And now we have these, and the reason why I have levers and buttons instead of redstone torches here is so that way we can actually stop the minecart. Because upon testing, I found out what would happen is I'd go through, and then hooray, I'm at my destination, I get out, and then my minecart just keeps going. That's not fun. What if we wanted to use a chest minecart too? Which is why we have to be concerned about how do we stop it. Of course, these are brakes when unpowered, so keep it in mind. And now we go down. We just go like this, and following the cursor, we can go through here. Maybe we want to go underground. And then we can go up, maybe make another stop here, and then we can curve around this mountainside. And finally, maybe we can use this pre-existing cave to curve through, and we'll have a neat underground portion. Go around this base, through these caves, and then finally, we'll end up at the beginning again. Maybe you have an underground base you want to hook this up to, but still, keep in mind what you want to be able to use. And then finally, we can talk about forks in the road. And here's how you can do that. And this requires manual intervention. You might want to use target blocks. So we have this rail situation. We can use a lever to alternate which areas it goes to. So keep that in mind. I'm going to have a nice simple circle for demonstrative purposes, but if you have multiple areas you need to end up to, then levers are your friend. You can try other means of powering the rails. It doesn't have to be a lever. Going through our stations, of course very simplistic for now. Well, we go from A to B, and now going to C, we have a new challenge. We need to go down, and going down is easy, but anytime we go down, we have to go back up, and yeah, that can be an issue, which is why there's so many powered rails. We're continuing the dark oak method to make sure it's easily traceable from above. It makes it look a lot more professional if it's nice and armored like this. Well, not armored, but accented. And then we go curve here, and we have the C station. Very basic. We can add more to these. For each of these stations, I plan to make a separate house tutorial, so that way this little lake inland looks super cool. Because we have a lot of houses here already, yeah, that's what my grand plan is behind all this. But anyways, we have these going through, and we go back up. Make sure that you have the powered rails. Frequently test your track. And of course, be prepared to fork over a bit of gold. If you're having trouble with the gold, remember, you can go to the Nether, or you can go to the Badlands. Go high up in the Badlands, bring a beacon, start strip mining the place, and you'll get a ton of gold. And you'll even get terracotta for the rest of your builds. But yes, we're going to go up, and you can see how we are faced with another predicament. We go up, but our base is over there by the mountain. How are we going to get there? The answer is we don't actually have to go all the way there. This little platform here, that'll work fine. We can have stairs, and we can build paths. If you just put in some gravel, andesite, cobblestone, things like that, and speckle them, then you can combine your stations with paths, and you can make a really cohesive area. Building is about just having things there, even if they might not be the best. Having those little things really ties everything together, so keep that in mind. We have the rails, and then we can build paths, these little stations. Make your builds feel cohesive with this. Of course, if you're just trying to go for point A, point B, and a cool track along the way, that's fine. But keep these in mind if you have multiple things. Sometimes it's nice to have multiple bases, even if some of them are empty or not being used. Now we have a track from point A all the way to point D. And notice how that little curvy piece right there, we can do the same thing but vertically. And that's how we get to this part. And we're going to spice up the individual stations a bit later. For now, here's something else I want you to add. Listen to this. We have a detector rail right here, and hold on, turning on the night vision. You can see it's hooked up to some note blocks. That way, when a minecart arrives, it plays a little jingle. It's not terribly useful, but it's kind of cool. And then, of course, we can connect this path over here all the way to the station in order to make a more cohesive world. And then finally, let's go back down. Our next destination, we're going to go down, and we're going to curve over here actually. Go down this mountain so that way we can have another part. I can demonstrate support beams once we reach back to point A, and we just go from here down, and we're going to go through a cave in order to experiment some more. And then finally we end up behind this base, and then we connect right back here. And of course, all of y'all have different terrain, but this is a pretty good example of how we can apply this to a bunch of different places. We can have curved terrain going over stuff, we can hug some uneven grounds, we can go up more sharply, and then we can go back down, go back to hanging over something, and we can even go completely subterranean. That way, you're equipped to deal with whatever situations you have in your world. Continuing downwards in order to finish up our thing, you can see we go right in front of here. Not as dramatic as I was envisioning, but still. Once we add in our extra details and make this actually look cool, then it will be better. But yeah, we go down. Notice how the stairs, every time you change direction, you need to make sure that you have this little 2-block piece. So you can see when it goes down, then it just needs a little bit of area to even out. So you can see what kind of direction it goes. But yeah, we have this, and then all the way over here, Now we have the tunnels, and of course this is just world edited nonsense, but still we can see the rough path. Then we go under everything, no fancy curves. In fact, I decided that it would be a little bit more efficient if we didn't go that far. So yeah, we just go straight under everything, right back up, and hooray, we've ended up right back at the beginning. Ideally, without any human intervention, we should be able to go completely around. And of course, it's better to always keep an eye on your player, but still, we need to make sure it's also chest minecart compatible. And that might mean adding more powered rails later. But for now, let's worry about humans only. Because of course, minecart physics change depending if there's a passenger. Right around here, we have our curves, we go down, we can go up and down like this. And now for the cave, we do literally the same thing. The real difference lies in the fact that when we're in the cave, we need to do something a little bit differently because our decorations are different. We don't just stick with this the whole time, place torches on the walls. That is not the best. Instead, right here, you can see where we transition to stone. Then let's go to cobbled deep slate. Of course, if it fits your palette. If you're going for something lighter like normal oak and birch and spruce, then it would be better to stick with cobblestone. And if you're going even darker, potentially consider blackstone. And then we have this, we go the whole way down like that. And of course we can have some smooth areas in here. And then finally we have this straight line. Flanking it on either side, let's have some stairs. And I'm not entirely sure why I'm doing this, but still, we have this part and it looks kind of cool. So let's do that. And then let's continue all the way through, make our staircase back up, and then we'll have it be functional for now. And then we can go right back around and start our beautification. So we have the tunnels there with the cobbled deep slate preparing for what we're doing later. And then let's add some support beams, let's add the lighting, make this safe, not just functional. And then we'll add the things that make it useful even for non-players, so that way you can make the most of this minecart system. With this long final stretch, you might want to include a bit more powered rails, especially if you're going on flat terrain. You will eventually lose speed. Now we've looped right back to the beginning, which makes this a nice closed loop. We can go around to any point, and we don't even waste hunger while doing it. Costs nothing to use as long as you have a pre-existing minecart. So yay, we have one and it's functional. However, there's still a lot missing from it. Because yeah, it looks cool, but let's go in here and let's just use our brains for a moment. This is kind of floating. So yeah, we got floating, we got not integrating with the terrain at all. And then we can go and curve around here. We go up, and what do you know? We have more floating pieces. Plain dirt under this. Yeah, this is pretty bad. I mean, it looks cool from afar, but there's so much more we can do. And then, on top of all this, the glaringly obvious. This is really dark, which means you're probably going to have issues. Even though we have stairs here, and the stairs will prevent mob spawning, the rails will too. Still, you get the idea. This needs some work. So let's start off with something simple. Get out some dark oak stairs, and we can build some support beams, kind of like my last tutorial, where we have these and we go down like this and connect them to nearby surfaces. And we can do this for anything that is hovering over terrain. This piece especially, you can see, benefits greatly from it. That one over there benefits a lot. Over there, not so much, and if it's already on the ground or only like a block or two, it's not really necessary, but for these kinds of pieces, this is really good, so let's incorporate that. Now, we've added some supports in order to make all this flow so much better. Even if they're kind of small on a lot of the points, still, if you have more unstable terrain than I do, then you can use these to your advantage and they'll make your builds look so much better. Right here, we have slabs under every piece of dark oak. And then at a variable length of blocks, you can see the spacing is just random pretty much. Then we have these little pillars. Notice block, and then we surround it in stairs, connect it to the wall, and replace blocks as needed in order to make it look like it's actually attached. And then we repeat this all around. The increased amount of powered rails will help a lot, and then we even include them on the corners if we have any. Notably, it's just a lot of stairs. You can pause to see how I do this. But yeah, we have that. The station's unfinished. But still, we can definitely add some. Make sure that they blend in with your nearby builds though. But we have all this, and then let's go down here. You can see pretty generic, another incomplete station. Then we go back up, and nothing was really done here. We can add a little bit of dark oak to make it look like more stilted. But then we have here where we go over these bumps. Notice the dark oak, I shaved some of it off, and then added andesite walls and fences in order to make little pillars like this. Notice the stairs, and we repeat it again over here. This place didn't really have enough room, so I just filled it in completely, and you can see it really gets to shine right here as it goes up really rapidly. And then when it goes back down, we just have an alternate variant of what we're doing over there, you can see. And then we have these actually equally spaced, and then some mine shaft pieces. So hooray, we now have some stabilization. It looks a lot better. Now we need to worry about this cave right here. So let's turn the night vision back on. And then when we go down here, think about what we want for the walls. Do we want it to be perfectly industrialized? I'd say sort of. A lot of it should, but other pieces, maybe we could break open the wall and have like a little cave scene. Maybe a mural, or potentially some lava pools, a fake abandoned mine shaft, things like that, or even fossils. Let's make this interesting. And of course, if you're building this in a different area like a desert, think about your environmental things. While here we don't really have much going on, it's just a mountainous area. So really all I have to work with is maybe like skulk. Still, we should try something to make it a bit more interesting. So if you're in a desert, maybe fossils. If you're in the snow, maybe it's frozen, things like that. Jungle, overgrown. If we do that, it makes it feel a lot more lively. Right here in these caves, you can see the walls are now kind of beat up, and in the middle of it, we even have a little bit of a campsite underground. Notice we have a little bit of meat cooking over a campfire, and we have some cyan terracotta, because why not? And the walls are nice and beat up, the ceilings, everything. And it's still well lit. And then when we go to the surface, I keep that true. You can see all of the good lighting in here. And when we go from afar, it really lights up the build. It makes everything look a lot more cohesive, and it keeps it safer. Less mobs are going to be near the track. So let's keep that in mind always. Even when we turn it to day, you won't notice it, but you can still see the little light fixtures add a lot. And we're assuming that our central point of view is from the middle here. And you can see how all the lanterns are facing towards the middle for that reason. So that way it feels like you can be here and it's, well, cool. Maybe we could add some sort of raft if you have a lake in the middle of your mountains. But of course, I don't expect everyone to have the same terrain. And then a lot of powered rails. A good stress test to see if this works. Put in a chest minecart and fill up every slot to the brim, like 27 stacks of stone or something like that. And then we slide it through in both directions. Just because one side works like we go this way, hooray, clockwise it works. And then we go counterclockwise and we find out that one of our ramps has no powered rails and now you can't transport. You need to be careful of that. Remember, the more items are in a chest or a hopper, the heavier it gets. So of course we need more powered rails. And now we have everything done with the actual rail system. Now we need some of the stations. Remember the path from earlier? And that's actually how I got this lamppost design. Let's continue that. With the speckled ground, we continue to here, maybe a small building. Let's try imitating some of our nearby structures. Like this little Tudor house, let's build a tiny Tudor house right here. Or over there, there's not really much, but it is still pretty close to this cliffside base. So let's continue doing that little fashion there. And down here, I plan on adding something completely different, and it's okay to leave it a little bit barren. We can add a chest or two to store our minecart. Say we want to go from here to here, all fine. But yeah, now let's build our little stations and copy our nearby builds to make it feel a lot more cohesive. Finally, we have a little bit of decoration for each of our stations, barring the C one. This one, we can see just some chests. You can store your minecarts here. That's about it. And then let's go over to B. And you can see it's a mini version of the cliffside base. It's a bunch of facade buildings with deep slate roofs and being made of pale. Along with that, we have a chest right here. In the future, I'll expand upon this and a new tutorial will go right there, so stay tuned for that. Then, for the C station, of course, we don't really have anything, but notice the pretty lighting all the way up. And then D, well, it links up to the tutor house. There's just one last thing. Well, we make a baby tutor house. And it's a whole tutorial in of itself. Yeah, maybe I should make one about this. Of course, comment down below if you actually want to see that. And you can see, it's just a little guy. There's nothing really to him. And then we'll connect the path up in our vibrant visuals showcase. But yeah, after this, we loop right back around, and since that's part of the main base for my last tutorial, I don't think I need to expand upon it anymore. So hooray, we have a really nice area here. Now, let's take a look in vibrant visuals. With vibrant visuals enabled, you can see how this little mountainside has really turned into something, especially with all the lighting. That's why I enunciated it so much. It's so important to have this lighting working together. That way, you can see how it all comes together as one big build, even if these tutorials are completely separate, by the way. Yep, all of these houses here have their own tutorials. Still, it looks really cool. Even if the minecarts themselves aren't very useful, only moving 8 blocks per second, which is the same as a boat, and then yeah, the elytra exists, all that. Still, it's a very nice thing to wrap together your world, even if you don't plan on using it. And who knows, maybe you need to transfer a ton of items from point A to point B, maybe you don't have shulker boxes, maybe the end is disabled on your server. Who knows? But still, even if you don't plan on actually using the minecarts, you might actually have a really cool time with this. And if we set this to day, then we can see how it still works really nice. Having these bridges about, you can have this kind of moving around reflection on everything you've done. And you can scan the area, and what do you know? You have a ton of things working together, cohesive. We should try doing that. And this applies for any build, even if you're just watching this to listen to the sound of my voice, because if you are, thank you. But still, we can see all this. You should try mixing your builds together, because it makes your world feel a lot more, well, together. When you spend all your effort working on farms that are ugly, must be relegated to way further out, it kind of gets demotivating, if you get what I mean. Building this might just be good for the health of your world. But either way, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw out.